Well, welcome to this video. This video really is designed as a part 5 to my New to Motorhomes series, and I'll put a link to the New to Motorhomes playlist in there, so if you haven't seen that, please have a look at it. Now, I'm guessing that there are a lot of people who are new to motorhomes, judging by the number of questions that I get asked on videos that have got nothing to do with new to motorhomes, and some of those questions I'll try and answer in this video. To people who've been motorhoming for many years, those questions seem a little bit basic, but I have to think back to when we started, and you know, we didn't know how to fill the tanks, empty the water, or anything, or we had been shown and then we'd forgotten. So I can fully understand how people, get confused about how things work in the motorhome. So I'm hoping that this video will answer some of those basic questions, and it will get people to look back at those new to motorhome videos that I did. It's about 7 months ago now, would you believe, and I did it during the first lockdown, and I thought it would be a good time to actually look back at some of those videos. So I'll put a link to those videos up here. Please do watch them after this video, and like I say, I'll try and answer some of those basic questions. I've got my laptop with me, so I will be looking down at that to try and get to some of the questions. The first question really is to do with the time of year. It's absolutely freezing outside. It's about 0 degrees today, and I've got the motorhome on the drive, and I've got the heating on. Fortunately, I've actually turned it up a little bit now, so there's a bit of heat coming out of the radiator behind me, which is nice. But people have asked me, do I leave the heating on when I'm on the drive? Well, I do. What confuses people is they think they have to have water in the boiler. Now, unlike a domestic heating system, you don't need water in the boiler on the motorhome for the radiators to work, and that's on the Audi heating, which is the one that's fitted to this van. On the Truma system is similar, except the heating uses blown air, so it doesn't need water in the boiler to blow out warm air. So the answer to that question is yes, you can use the heating in the van when you're sitting on the drive and you've drained down the water. So you've let all the water out of the boiler and you've let all the water out of the tank. I've got a little, you can find it, I've got a little diagram of the water system, and perhaps what I'll do is I'll just take you through that, because I think that reasonably explains how all the water system works. So on the bottom left you've got the water tank itself. Now the water tank in this van is just under the floor, just under here. You've got a water inlet, so you fill up water, a hose pipe can go in there, or one of the connectors I use. Now you put water in the tank, and you can see as you follow the arrows up, it goes to a filter and a pump. The pump is over there under this sofa on my van, and you've got what's called a surge damper. That's to stop the water going bloop, bloop, bloop as the pump goes round, so it just eases the flow out. And then obviously you've got the taps, so you've got tap in the kitchen, tap in the washroom, and tap in the shower. So it goes round to the taps, and if you notice, just going down, there's a non-return valve, so the water goes down into that non-return valve. That means it can't go back up, obviously, past the drain valve, which I'll come to in a little while, and into the water heater stroke boiler. Now the water heater boiler, when switched on, heats up the water obviously, and then pumps the water out through to the hot inlet, if you like, of the tap, so you get the hot water to the tap. So if you think about it, if I've drained down the boiler, there's no water in the boiler, and there's no water in the tank, there's no reason that I need the water heater on when I've got the system on. Now the reason is that the stuff that's going around the radiator isn't actually water at all. It's an antifreeze mixture, much like you get in the radiator of your car, and that's got a separate tank to it. So that's the fluid for the heater system. Has a 5-year protection to -37 degrees, so it should be alright unless it gets really cold in here. On this fan the radiators are actually quite tucked away, and if you can see up here, I hope you can see that that's the radiator under the bed here. Like I say, it is quite tucked away, and that is a completely separate system to the water heater, so that's why I can put the heating on with no fear of damaging the boiler. Now, as long as the water heater is actually switched off on the control panel. Perhaps just need to add here that the water gets into the boiler because the pump pumps the water into the boiler. When you open the hot tap on one of the taps, the water gets pulled in from the water tank into the boiler, heated up, and then pushed out to the hot tap. So it's sort of sucked through into the boiler, if you like. So when you're filling the water tank and you want to prime the system, I've got a whole video on that somewhere, and I'll put a link up to here about how the water fills through the boiler. But the process of opening the tap is what causes the boiler to fill up. The next question is about toilet fluids. You'll see there's two types of fluids that you put in your cassette toilet, and the first one is what you'll conventionally known as blue fluid. I use this one. It's actually called Old Spice, which is a strange name for toilet fluid, but this is a toilet blue, and you put this in small doses. This is a concentrated one, but you put this in a small dose into the actual toilet itself, and what does it say it does? It's a highly concentrated, let me say what it does. It's a cleaning fluid for chemical toilets with a fresh, inviting smell. So basically it stops the thing smelling. So a toilet fluid like this is what you normally put in your toilet. This is probably a more well-known name. This is Elsan blue bags, and these are quite nice because it's less mess than fluid. You just drop one of those into the toilet once you've emptied it out and rinsed it through. I have got a whole video on toilets as well, so I will put a link to that, and I'll put all the links to the descriptions I mentioned in the bottom as well, because I might actually run out of things up here. You know, put 5 in a video. Some campsites may ask that you use a green fluid, so this is Aquachem Green, the original, so environmentally conscious fluid for the waste holding tank. It's normally where the campsite use a septic tank, and they will tell you if you need to use green fluid. Some people use this all the time anyway. Yeah, it says septic tank safe, outstanding odour control with biological action, liquefies waste for easier emptying, reduces gas build-up. So that's why you use these fluids. Don't want any gas build-up. The other thing you may have heard of and you've seen mentioned is a pink fluid, and this is a Aquarinse Plus. And this goes in a separate tank. Now I haven't got that separate tank on this motorhome because the tank is flushed from the fresh water tank. It just uses fresh water to flush the toilet. Some motorhomes, Bailey in particular, have a separate flush tank, and it's something you'll see more on caravans than on motorhomes, but Bailey continue to use a separate flush tank. So you've not only got the fresh water to fill up, you've got the flush water to fill up. And what you do, what people do to reduce the smells, is to use a pink solution. So it's pink power for a smooth flush and clean flush water. Again, it's to reduce the smells, and it says it's safe for plastic and ceramic bowls, and you add this to the flush tank and dose 100 millilitres per 15 millilitres of flush water. So if you've got a Bailey or another motorhome that's got a flush tank, I think some of the Continental vans have a flush tank, you'll need the pink solution as well. Now, if you haven't got flush tank and you still want to rinse your toilet, you get a spray, and I've got a little spray, so let me just go and get that. I'll put a picture back here of the liquid I've actually run out of, the spray that you can get, and the idea of that is just before you flush the toilet you spray that liquid in there and then you flush it, and it just adds to the general nicer smell. It's really just to keep the nifs down. When you're moving off in a motorhome, you might be going out for the day, or you might be setting off on your holidays. There's always a lot of things to check and close. You don't really want to leave windows open. I know when we first had a motorhome, we were driving around a campsite with the roof open, way open, you know, the hecky up here, and people were waving at us, and we just thought, oh, people friendly. They're actually saying, you got your roof open. So we don't want to do that. So we came up with the idea of a checklist, or rather we probably saw someone else with the idea of a checklist. This is our checklist, and it's things like we've removed the sign, we've put the awning away, we've closed the flaps on the external filling points, drain taps are closed, dogs' posters in, chairs are put away, sort of things you can actually drive off. You could drive off with the step out or daft things like that. And it is, and we still use it today. I think I'll put a link down below and let people download our current version of this checklist. We've changed it many times, and I think it's probably due for another update soon. There's things on here that we keep changing, but it really is just a quick way of reminding you, to make sure that you've shut and closed everything, all the cupboards are locked and everything before you set off. Well, people have asked about connecting the CADAC to an outside barbecue point. I haven't actually got an outside barbecue point fitted to this motorhome. What I'll try and do is I'll see if I can find the things that you need to connect a motorhome to an outside barbecue point, if indeed you've got one. Someone asked about cleaning the washroom. So someone actually said, how do I get the plastic in the washroom to come up to a shine, because obviously it's gone dull. And I think the only answer I could give is that you don't use something that's abrasive. If you use domestic sort of cleaners, I think the one thing that springs to mind is something called Sif, and it's got like fine particles in it. The plastic in the washroom is very susceptible to getting scratched, so you really need to use a non-abrasive cleaner. The stuff I use is the Thetford bathroom cleaner. Let me show you it. And it's this, and it is called bathroom cleaner. I know there's no bath in the washroom on a motorhome, unless you've got a really big motorhome. And it says for a sparkling clean bathroom and plastic surfaces. So if you've got a new motorhome and you don't want to scratch the surfaces, use something like this that's non-abrasive. $4.75, and it lasts for absolutely ages. Yeah, next question was about the fridge. How does the fridge work? So let's have a look at the fridge. This is our fridge controls on here, and if I get you closer, try and hold you steady. You've got a temperature gauge on the right, and moving to the left you've got an auto light. That means it's on auto energy selection. At the moment, because we're plugged in, and that's the plugged in symbol, the one next to it is gas, and the one after that is battery. So what happens is when you start the engine, it will switch over to that battery symbol. Now it's not actually running off the battery, it's running off the van ignition. So that only comes on when you're running the engine. So the answer to the question about how do I run my fridge on 12 volts, which is what you often see on Facebook forums, is you can't run your fridge on 12 volts if you're not driving or you've not got the engine running, because that's the only way you can get 12 volts to the fridge, unless you've rigged it up some other way. The reason for that is it takes an awful lot of electricity to run a fridge on 12 volts, and it will drain the battery very quickly, so it needs the engine to be running for it to run on 12 volts. So what the fridge will do is it will monitor which supply is appropriate. If you're plugged in, it'll be on electricity. If you're not plugged in, it will go on to gas automatically. Now, assuming that you've got the gas supply switched on. I've just been up outside and unplugged the electricity cable, and you can see it's switched on to gas. Okay. Now if I manually try and change the mode, I'll come off auto and I go onto battery, and that's what happens if you try and run the fridge on 12 volts when you're not plugged in. So I'll put it on auto, and then it's gone back to gas. It's quite happy with that. So your fridge just needs to be, if you've got one of these automatic energy selection fridges, just needs to be left on auto. You don't need to touch the controls at all. It will work out what's the best setting to have it on. And if you're looking at the control panel, you'll see that it's left on auto for me, and it says temperature's optimal. I honestly think that the invention of the automatic energy selection fridge is the best thing since sliced bread for motorhomes. When we had our previous motorhomes, you had to always remember to switch the fridge on to the particular setting you need it on. So if you'd stop, you needed to switch the gas on, then switch the fridge on to gas, and then when you drive off, you need to make sure it was on the 12 volt setting, and then when you plug back in, you needed to make sure it was on the 240 volts setting. It drives you nuts. Well, it drives me nuts anyway. So just great that we can just forget the fridge and let it get on with keeping things cold. So the next question is a bit of a bigger subject, but it's about how do things work when you're off grid. So I've actually unplugged the electricity supply now, and so the lights are still on. The heating is still making a noise, so it's still running, but it's trying to run on 240 volts. Now the heating, unlike the fridge, is not quite as intelligent. It doesn't know that I've disconnected the electricity. So what I would need to do is to put the gas on and turn the electric off. So the heating is now running on gas. So I've got heating, I've got lighting. What about my 240 volt or 230? Sometimes people call them 230 volt sockets, don't they? What about the electricity supply? Yeah, so I've got no 230 volt supply, so the mains plugs are not working. That's not working. There's one thing you won't be able to use when you're not on hookup is the microwave. As you can see, that's completely dead because that runs on mains electricity. There's the plug for it. The heating will run off gas, and the blower for the heating, this thing, that will run off gas as well. The lights in the fridge will run off 12 volts. The TV booster is 12 volts. And the fan, the extractor fan's 12 volts. But the great thing is, of course, the tellies will work on 12 volts. This is a plug for the 12 volts. My gas has run out. So this is a good chance to show you how to switch the gas on. So that's off. That's on. Press this button, and sometimes you have to press that button as well. That's the crash sensor and surge protector. Just check that you've got gas coming through by switching one of the hobs on for a short while. And now the fridge is happily running on gas. So there's not much you can't use in the motorhome when you're off grid. I think that just basically, I think the microwave and the hot plate. That's about it. I thought I'd add that if you desperately need 230 volts mains power when you're off grid, then maybe you want to invest in an inverter, and that's not easy to say. This is just an old inverter I had. It's been sitting in the shed for ages. This is a 500 watt inverter, and what it does is it converts 12 volts into mains, and like I say, it's 500 watts. So this would probably run sort of a battery charger or something like that. It's not going to run your hairdryer or your curling tongs or your toaster even. But if you really need some power, you might want to have a look at a video I did a little while ago. I don't know how many links I've got left, or it might be down there. You might want to invest in this. Now, this little lump is the Poweroak Max Oak EB150, to give it its full title. And what this is basically is a lithium battery and a inverter and a USB power supply, all rolled into one package. And I've done a whole video on it, so I won't spend too much time on it, and like I say, I'll give you the link to it. But it's got 1000 watt mains output on the back of it, and on the front of it you've got 12 volt supply, and you've got USB supplies as well. And it's a lithium battery, and you can charge it up. You can actually charge it up with the little inverter I showed you earlier. And but normally it's got a little mains charger, so you can charge it up before you go and take it with you. And then you've got mains power and charging power for all your gadgets. So it's a really handy device. Check the video out. Yeah, so that's the inverter connected to the battery, providing 240 volts to this power pack to this unit here, and charging this unit up. Now I would suggest that's a bit silly really, because obviously I could just plug the charger into the mains when I'm on mains, but if you're off grid and you want a quick boost for something, maybe you could use that. Perhaps when you're going along, you could have the engine running. Obviously the battery's being supplied at the moment by the mains supply, so it's a very sort of inefficient way to charge this unit up, and this is charged up anyway, so it's not necessary at the moment. But that is a possible solution if you need to charge something whilst you're driving along. Use an inverter. A supplementary question to this about running off grid is, can I run my heating with the solar panels on? If you've got solar panels, does it help run the heating? Well, the short answer is no. The solar panels will charge your batteries, so they'll charge the 12 volt batteries, but they won't help you run your heating on electricity, which is 240 volts. So whilst the solar panels will charge the batteries, which will help keep the lights on and it will help keep everything running, you can't use them to heat the van in any way. So the solar panel regulator is in this cupboard here, and it basically just shows you if it's got an output and if it's charging. Now the whole system is a smart system, and what it does is, if there is sufficient solar charge, there will be a symbol against one of these batteries, a little sun symbol that tells you it's charging those batteries with solar, because There we are. The vehicle is actually being charged by solar, getting 0.4 amps, and it's charging the vehicle battery at the moment. And it says which battery has been selected, so it's on vehicle. So this question probably causes more arguments on Facebook than probably religion and politics put together, and it's which club should I join? Should I join the Caravan and Motorhome Club or the Camping and Caravanning Club? So I'll try and stay neutral here, and I'll give you the best points about both. We're actually in both, so my short answer would be join both. But let's talk about the Caravan and Motorhome Club first. It's easy to book and amend and even cancel your bookings, and it can all be done online. It's a very easy to use website. If you go to their sites, you'll always find the facilities clean and well kept, as will you find the sites always well laid out and well looked after. The Camping and Caravanning Club is the oldest and largest club of its type for any forms of camping in the world, and crucially for us, it has more sites in Scotland, including some wonderful sites like Glencoe and Moffat. We particularly like some of the big sites like Sandringham and Hertford, and you get to see all forms of camping, everything from wigwams to fifth wheelers. So if you're new to motorhoming and you're wondering which clubs to join, I would say join both. You can always cancel one if you don't get on with it, so try both of them. I would add that both clubs have a large network of smaller sites. They're called certificated locations for the Caravan and Motorhome Club, and certificated sites for the Camping and Caravanning Club. And what you get are small sites in a rural location often, and it's limited to a small number of vans, normally 5 vans that you can get on site, so they're nice and quiet. And a lot of people join either club or both clubs just for those CLs and CSs, they're called. So that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful if you're new to motorhomes, and if you're not new to motorhomes, if there's any tips or comments you want to leave that might be helpful to people who are new to motorhomes, then please do so. I'm sure I've forgotten something, and hope this series, once I've made this video, is pretty comprehensive. I've probably gone over a few things too many times, to be honest, but I'm just keen that people who come into motorhoming are not put off by what would seem to be the complexities of it, but really once you get used to it, it's no more difficult than running a house. Basically that's what you've got, is a little house on wheels. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe, hit the notifications icon, and you'll get updates when I release another video. We'll see you soon. Bye then.